it's my great pleasure to introduce one of the new additions to UBIS. It's Dr. Elisa Forestan-Barnes. Elisa is a graduate of the University of Oxford. That's where she did her DPhil. She also has an MA, an MSc, and a Bachelor Honours degree. Elisa and I were working together in London for a number of years. And she's very much at the leading or the cutting edge of looking at how technology is influencing education. And so today she'll be speaking to us on the transformative impact of education technology and AI on the contemporary learning environments. So Elisa, over to you.
Thank you, Stuart. That's a very nice introduction. And hi, everyone, and thank you for participating to this symposium. I'm very happy to talk to you today, as I'm very passionate about EdTech to start with, and education in general, as well, as Stuart knows very well. So I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction of kind of how the education landscape has changed during the years, and how then kind of EdTech and then AI have kind of become crucial, and they have transformed different things, and how kind of education has reacted to it. And then we will talk about kind of the main features that are kind of changing education. And I'll give you some examples in terms of the technologies that we have available. And we talk a little bit about kind of advantages and challenges as well of EdTech and AI. All right. So anyway, so first of all, when you think about the traditional classroom and the traditional classroom model that, has undergone significant change, and what we knew as education is it's no more in that way. And we're moving from a system which is focused on standardized degrees to one which values more of a more flexible and demonstrable skills and, continuous learning and upskilling as well. And of course, if you think about the evolving education landscape, we always think about the COVID-19 time as the time where things really started to happen very fast. Because, it dramatically accelerated the development of EdTech. We all had to adapt very quickly. So EdTech started to become what we all use and what we all know, especially, think about online education, online learning. And from there, it kind of, it's remained crucial, and it started developing and evolving more and more. So these days, we don't have the traditional classroom environment anymore, but we all have a sort of some hybrid or blended learning going on at all times, and not just in higher education, which is what I'm going to focus mostly, but from primary school to higher education, the hybrid and blended learning has become the normal way to teach and learn. And with, embedding different kind of technology, and then AI has come along and made even more changes and innovation. So education has been kind of redefined, first of all, with the rise of online learning and the hybrid learning model. So, basically, this has led to a proliferation of online courses and degree programs, and a shift from the consideration of traditional higher education institution, for example, as the only providers of degrees and education, to a wider choice of online platform. You think about Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, and all different sorts of platform, which of course creates, they cater for very different kind of learners, and there's basically something for everyone. Education has become more flexible. If you think about the past and the fact that the learner had to adapt to the education institution, they had to adapt, to the time of that the classes were organized and the kind of provision that was given these days is the other way around, and it's the institutions which have to adapt their offer to the learner. So that means that individuals in full-time work can actually learn and get degrees and get education while they're working, and people in kind of different locations as well can get education from universities and platforms which are not based in the same country either. So it's this, this has opened up a lot of different opportunities. Geographical barriers as well have been basically taken down, because you can choose to study online remotely from a university which is very much on the other side of the planet, thanks to all this, the technology basically. The notion of education itself has changed, and these days we don't talk about education anymore as you think about education as a more formal and institutionalized way to learn. These days we focus more on the learning, which is something which leads to a more informal setting as well. So we learn every day in different settings, in different situations. Sometimes we learn and we get certifications. Sometimes we just learn by reading things on our own. You learn by practicing things. So there's a lot of more importance given to the learning as a whole, which reflects then sort of a shift as well between what we knew as a knowledge society, and which is based on knowledge is creation and sharing and use of knowledge in terms of more theoretical knowledge and more theories to create and innovate things, which is still very important, of course, because knowledge is what's drives innovation. But knowledge is also related to a more formal setting, to universities, to research institutes, and there's been a shift towards the concept of a skills society, which it's more kind of focused on ensuring that people have practical abilities and the competencies to perform certain tasks in the economy and in specific industries. And this is of course related to the fourth industrial revolution and the fact that AI as well has brought so many changes, and the introduction of new technologies means that we have a lot of new skills coming up in the labor market in industries very quickly, which then leads to new skills appearing and new skills that need to be fulfilled, and people and employees that needs to be upskilled and reskilled on a regular basis. So learning is now what drives economic growth together with knowledge, but because changes are so rapid that it's very difficult to keep up. And this is, we will talk about it later a little bit more, what is now driving, this also the reaction of education to this, because education needs to provide the skills. So there's always, for everything that happens, in AI technology development, then it needs to go back to education, and there needs to be a bit of a more reaction. And then, of course, this also leads on emphasis on the concept of lifelong learning, as in, we used to, get our degree, then you get into a workplace and you get trained and you learn and you progress. But these days it's very different because of the changes that happen in the labor market, technology, AI. We as employees, as individuals, we need to keep learning. So we cannot just stop learning, and this need of reskilling and upskilling is basically also driving education to have to provide not just degrees, but micro learning and more professional training, and to look at skills that we all need, like soft skills like adaptability and resilience and the ability to critical think. they are very important. So these are all changes that then kind of mirror what EdTech is giving us, and these days together with AI. Okay. And of course, if you think about, the development and the innovation and how EdTech has moved so fast in the past years, I'll give you some numbers here. So the EdTech market itself, so by the end of this year, 2025, the total spending on digital education tool is forecast to kind of grow to $404 billion. And this is kind of double if you look at what it was in 2020. So that's quite something. There's 16 billions investment only, I think, last year. And I'm sure you're not surprised to see that China accounted for 60% of it. In terms of digital tool adoption, I think there's almost 90% of educators are reporting increased using digital tools in their teaching by the end of last year. And 50% of workforce needs reskilling and will need to learn new skills by 2030. And I'll give you a bit more information about that because it's quite interesting. And the changes in AI and technology and so on, which is really advancing many industries, it's bringing a lot of changes then in education as well, and it will bring more need for skilling and reskilling. So in terms of the future of work, according to the World Economic Forum, you have kind of they're forecasting that by 2030, 22% of jobs that we know today will be some of them will be disappearing, and some of new ones will come along. And it's kind of expected that 14% of this will be new jobs that we don't exist today. So about 170 million jobs will be new and created. And that's, if you think about industries like green and IT and manufacturing and engineering, these are some of the crucial industries where these changes are taking place and will take place. Considering kind of workers, we can expect that 40% of existing skill sets will be transformed or become outdated by 2030, which means that, if you think about out of 100 workers, 60 workers will need new training and to be upskilled, reskilled. 29 of these could be upskilled in current roles. Some of them can be upskilled and kind of redeployed in different departments, but that leaves sort of 11 workers out of 100, which will not be able to be reskilled or upskilled and might actually become out of work. So there's a lot of changes going on, and this is kind of the basis where then EdTech and AI come in today in terms of education and teaching and learning, but also, as I said, because of the importance of skills these days, teaching and learning is part of it. But these days we see a lot of EdTech going to kind of focusing on the career side. So the kind of employability of, is there a correspondence between what we actually study, the education we get, and the needs of the labor market. And we see that a lot more also embedded in the different kind of learning environments and technologies that we use. And in fact, I had the chance to go to this learning technologies exhibition last week in London. And it was actually interesting because, I go to these exhibitions quite regularly, kind of 2-3 times a year. And you can see the shifts. Like last year, the focus was all on AI and what we can do with AI, so generative AI, how it is applied to different technologies. This year, it was about how AI technology is kind of applied together with the need for reskilling and upskilling. So there was a lot of the features, the new features in tech was about skills mapping and skills taxonomy and so on. So it was quite interesting to see that now this, the career and employability are really becoming integral parts of together with the teaching and learning and the pedagogy applied to technology in education. In terms of so this is kind of, where we are at the moment and where we see the future going in terms of society and economies. In terms of the power of EdTech today, if we just consider education technology, there are a few main features that EdTech has brought that have really brought a lot of advantages and solved a few things that were not working well in education before. So you have, for example, accessibility is one of the main features that EdTech has brought, and a lot of advantages, as in, education platforms can really be accessed by, I mean, maybe I wouldn't say everyone, because you always have the digital divide in some, places and for some people. But education platforms have made education a lot more accessible for a lot of people that did not have the ability or, the advantage before. You think about platforms and EdTech, for example, like Khan Academy, which I will mention later as well, which, has brought free really learning and free education to a lot of people globally, which did not have the opportunity to access it before in the form of videos related to, I mean, initially it was just maths, but then it kind of expanded into many different subjects and includes humanities as well these days. So this is a very good example. And I really like the concept of Khan Academy because I mean, Sal Khan, who's the founder, and he still is in charge, he basically started Khan Academy just producing videos himself, kind of math tutoring to be able to help. I think it was kind of his nieces or nephews at the beginning, and then it kind of became viral, and then it got funding and it became what it is today. So, and it keeps developing. And it's, it's this concept of you want education to be available and accessible by everyone. So accessibility is really one of the biggest advantages of EdTech these days. Personalized learning, again, EdTech has made education, it changed from a kind of a one-size-fits-all, which is what we knew before. You're in a classroom, everyone has to do the same. We have the same material, the same content, the same assessment, and so on. What EdTech brought was kind of a way for students to learn at their own pace. So if you consider, you still have the synchronous learning. So you have either you sit in a classroom altogether or you're an online class. But then what happens outside the classroom, so there's a whole new world of asynchronous learning where you have content which is provided as extra in virtual learning environments like Canva or Moodle. You have a lot of different resources which not only would cater for students who they kind of learn at a different pace, but also students and learners who have sort of learn with in a different way. So you can be more of a visual learner. So videos will really suit your learning. Or you can be a learner who's more interested in kind of reading things or needs to learn by writing. So all of this has been made available by EdTech, and it is actually, you can study at your own pace. It builds more confidence. You can actually master the learning better. So learning mastery is one of the main concepts in pedagogy, which we can now apply better because we have the resources, and the technology actually allows you to do that. You can address gaps in the learning by providing certain content which can be accessed by people who need that. So it's very individualized, and this is a very good advantage. Gamification. So, I mean, we think about gamification more maybe for younger learners, but still, you have a lot of EdTech these days, which allows you to introduce quizzes and learning by games. And, if you think about Kahoot, for example, is a very good technology which allows you to do polls, to do quizzes, and embed that into your lesson. And this, of course, drives engagement. If you think about, one of the issues or, the downsides of online learning, as in, Coursera or Udemy, who offers you this completely independent learning videos that you can follow at your own pace, is that they lack a bit of engagement and they don't suit everyone. I mean, I'm not sure how many of you have tried, to take maybe some micro learning or a MOOC course from Coursera or a similar platform, but it might be quite challenging to stick to it because of the the kind of motivation and the way the course is organized. In fact, I think if you think about online learning from this sort of platforms, the completion rate is still very low. I think some of them it's about 5%. So it is really, really difficult. So gamification, technology like Kahoot or even Duolingo. If you ever tried to learn a language using Duolingo, it's more of a game-based. I think they developed sort of a virtual person you can kind of speak with, as in kind of converse in the language you're trying to learn. Which makes things more fun, and also you don't have the kind of the pressure to be in a classroom and to maybe get things wrong. So gamification is very interesting and keeps things engaging, which is something sometimes online learning is missing. And of course, blended learning, which is integrated online and in-person tool, which these days I think I can say all of the institutions use, because of course it offers a lot of resources in terms of synchronous and asynchronous learning, and it allows kind of the best of both worlds, really. And you can always personalize and add things related to what you think your students will take advantage from. In terms of course, that's just EdTech, but then AI came and it developed really fast. When you think about generative AI, of course, it really changed everything in terms of what we can do with technologies, and what we can, the advantages that it brings, not just for the learner, but in this case, AI has brought like a next level solutions for the lecturers, but also for the administrators in institutions. So it's really, it has changed everything. Of course, when we talk about generative AI, I'm sure you all think of one main technology, which is ChatGPT and OpenAI, which is the one that powers a lot of other technologies, as it provides, of course, the language model. So it powers, kind of AI tutorings, assistants. It allows a lot of predictive analytics, adaptive learning, video creation, assessments, and so on and so forth. So it has really made the most changes. In terms of adaptive learning systems, actually, these are very interesting because they use AI algorithms to customize education content and pacing to each learner needs. So if, EdTech started the kind of personalized learning, then AI really, now it's powering it and it's become more and more powerful. So these systems, they basically continuously analyze the student's performance. It could be quiz questions they get right or wrong. It could be the time you spend on reading a resource on your Canva or Moodle. It could be, how many times you log in into your system. And they adjust then the difficulty or the sequence of material that you get, and they can do that virtually in real time. So the goal here is to really keep the students in what we call the zone of proximal development. So if you look at the pedagogy behind technology, but also the pedagogy that's used in many curriculum developments, you kind of consider, you put together content which is it kind of increase step by step so that the student or the learner can actually master some content before they move on to the next one, and the next one will be kind of tailored and not too difficult or not too far from the previous one, in order for you to be able to learn continuously and kind of seamlessly. So AI actually can do that much better than we used to as, kind of humans, because it can see where you are as a learner. It can see the time it took you to, watch videos and so on and so forth. And it will think about the next step, what the next step can be, in the best way. So that if you're more of a kind of a slower learner and need to kind of master your learning by, I don't know, visualizing things more times or reading more resources, then it will allow you to practice that more. While if you're a fast learner, then it will challenge you by giving you material which is a bit more difficult, so that as a learner, you don't get bored. And this is quite a change, because we couldn't really have that before. If you think about, university as well, we as lecturers, as myself as well, we used to have to wait, at the end of the module to get feedback from the students, so you can then, adjust, for example, the next module. But also, you would never get the ability to cater for individual students. So this is actually really next level. And as in, there's been a lot of research, of course, done on this, and research actually shows that course completion rates improve by 30%, and the time for people to learn, actually to master complex topics, has dropped by 40%. By kind of allowing this personalized and adaptive learning. And so this is quite interesting, and there are a lot of technologies which allows that, and they are actually used not only in higher education. Actually, I think they're used a lot more in primary and secondary school, where actually, you kind of build blocks a lot more. It's a lot more crucial at that level to then master the next steps of education. So it's really interesting, and I think the most application here is in maths, where a lot of learners, I think, struggled. I mean, I wish I had it at my time in education. And I think the beauty of these systems is also that they don't give you the answers to problems or questions, but they give you the reasoning behind it, and they help you kind of scaffolding what the thinking is to get to the solution. So it is literally, you know, like having a personal tutor, but more accessible and cheaper, if you think about that. So this is really, it's really good. So that's adaptive learning. But of course, you know, if you think about AI tutors, virtual teaching assistants, this is what we see a lot these days. And of course, generative AI has allowed, for example, to have voice assistants and to create videos a lot more quickly than we used to be able to. So you know, virtual assistants can actually interact with learners 24/7. They can be related to specific subjects like, you know, maths or different ones, but they can also be applied in as a general kind of chatbot to answer queries related to, you know, the administration or, you know, things related to general student life. And this, of course, not only, you know, you have something available 24/7, but you also have, you know, you don't need specific employees to do that, or to have to answer the same questions for, you know, 10, 100 times. And the virtual assistant, because of the development of AI and very quickly, they are more and more powerful as we go along. And again, they are applied in different levels of education quite successfully as well. In fact, there was quite an interesting example. It's the teaching assistant, which was known as Jill Watson. It was a virtual TA, which was developed by Georgia Tech. In 2016, they were using the IBM Watson technology, which of course successfully answered all kind of students' questions on a course discussion forum for an entire semester. And the interesting thing was that the students didn't actually, they were not aware that this was an AI-powered virtual assistant. And they thought it was a real person answering their questions for the whole semester. And they were quite shocked when they actually were told that it was a virtual assistant. So this was actually a very successful pilot that then became it became something implemented on a regular basis. And of course, Jill Watson passed the Turing test, as you know, it kind of appeared human. So this kind of opened a lot of opportunities in terms of, you know, students getting feedback and being able to getting help outside the classroom in their own time and for, you know, as long as they need. It could be, you know, before assessment or during the module delivery. So this is a lot of, you know, it's a big change. Canmigo is also another very good example of AI tutoring, virtual tutoring. It was developed by Khan Academy again, using ChatGPT as their generative AI model. The thing about this is that, again, it is free, as Khan Academy content is, and it kind of, you know, it is accessible by people globally. So it is really an amazing thing. Predictive analytics is also something that has changed a lot of things, and, you know, will keep changing things, because it gives the opportunity to get insights in real time in terms of, you know, how the students are reacting to, for example, the material on the virtual learning environment, you know, how easy or difficult they're finding things, how much time they're spending on it. There are, you know, how this then relates to the outcome, so that as a tutor, as a, you know, university administrator, for example, you can actually tailor your courses towards kind of the outcome, or you can kind of predict how things will go for certain students with, you know, certain demographic characteristics as well. And kind of change things to related to these patterns. So it's very, very powerful. And these days, you can get this from most of the virtual learning environments. I think the more challenging part is for example, lecturers or people in the learning and teaching institutions to integrate it and for them to become like a normal thing to look at when they do their curriculum and courses and so on. So I talked about a few of these applications already, but so yeah, I talked about Camigo, talked about the Georgia State, no, that was Georgia Tech. So Harvard University integrated an AI-based tutor in their, I think, it was called CS50 course, which was about coding. And it was a virtual TA, and it basically provides help with kind of coding and processes in terms of this IT related and the kind of data science related insights, which helped a lot, and it provided 24/7 support for hundreds of students, which means that there was no actual lecturers who were doing this, and they could actually do something else. Duolingo is very interesting because, it offers sort of personalized learning as well, but I think the more interesting part which they have developed recently is the role play. So they have an AI role play simulation, which allows kind of immersive conversations with an AI virtual tutor. And they're so it's kind of scenario-based conversation. You're chatting with someone who could be a real person, but you don't have the pressure to, or the, worry to make mistakes, and you can get feedback in real time in terms of grammar corrections, suggestions for, different words you can use or different phrases in certain contexts. So it's interesting in this place, and it's very good because it gives you realistic practice. And it can really improve fluency and confidence in this, from an early age to, as adults. And I think it's initially was available only for a few languages like Spanish and French from English, but I think they're developing more languages as we go along. We have other applications. One of them, which is really, really becoming more and more popular within higher education, is Studiosity, which is an EdTech, which helps students. It's basically an online academic support service that provides students with personalized feedback, real-time tutoring outside of regular classrooms. So that means that, for example, as a student, you can get feedback on your assessment before you submit it, and that is, for example, grammar related. Think about, non-English speaking students, for example, or students who speak a different language from the university they're studying at. You can get feedback on the kind of general context and things related to the assignment based on the assignment, how you should do it and what is, what the question is and so on. And this is kind of personalized feedback, and it comes in real time. So that means that as a learner, you can get a lot of help, which, would have taken a lot longer if one of the lecturers was going to do that. And for lecturers, of course, it means that they can actually deal with other tasks and not just doing this which we know it's quite a long process as well. It's like a study help desk, basically. And there's more and more institutions globally that are applying this in their curriculum. And it shows that it's really helping also student engagement and motivation. And it helps with the actual outcome of their studies. Elicit is a very interesting platform which helps with research, for example. I don't know if any of you has used it, but also as a kind of, research person or a lecturer, is an AI-powered research assistant. So it creates, it is created by a not-for-profit organization. It's designed to help students, but also researchers to find papers and resources related to kind of literature review. And it really is very powerful as so you can go by, you can search by specific words, you can search by topics, you can, it gives, it basically reads papers, analyze them for you, answer your specific research questions by pulling evidence and insights from a database of millions of academic papers. So that means that as a student or as a researcher, that takes, if not hours or kind of days of, we know how long this work can take as a, literature review. So this is really a game-changing tech. And I discovered it and I use it a lot. And I think I have advised a lot of my colleagues and also students to use it. So it is actually a very good tool. In terms of assessment as well, so these days also, assessment and feedback is helped by AI. Most universities would use, at least in the European side here, they use Turnitin. So Turnitin provides kind of a way for lecturers and students to check against kind of plagiarism, but it has become as well sort of a way for students to get some feedback, automated formative feedback before their final submission. So and it got more and more powerful with the application of AI in it. And then in terms of skills tech and, as I said, these days we have a lot of focus on kind of what are the skills out there and what are the skills that are appearing in the job market and kind of tailoring education to it. For example, we have Abodu, but also over in the US, you have One Mentor, and they're all kind of skills tech platforms which provides skills mapping and taxonomies, which are based on kind of global scraping of data. And they allow to have kind of skills intelligence, which you can then apply in the courses you're creating as a course developer. So AI helps on a lot of different sides of education in this way. Benefits and opportunities. So I'm just wrapping up a few things. So in terms of benefits and opportunities in AI in education, we have, of course, personalized learning at scale, which I believe it's the main feature, the main change and advantages that we have at the moment, as it makes it feasible to tailor education to each student's strengths, weaknesses, pace of learning. As an institution itself, you can get more, you can offer more to your students and the outcomes, of course, will be better. So it's a win-win for everyone. 24/7 tutoring and support with the virtual assistants and tutors. And this is, again, it's a game changing, not just for the, for example, the fact that you have it 24/7, it's always available to students, but because it really, if you think about maths, for example, it really helps in critical thinking and scaffolding in the reasoning behind certain problems or certain things you have to solve. So it's a lot more than just getting an answer or feedback for something. And the analytics, data analytics and data-driven insights, which again, they're a game changer, not just for lecturers to be able to understand kind of how students are responding to courses or material in real time, but also for institutions to tailor programs to kind of understand what kind of, issues are related to which kind of students demographics and react to it. And and of course there's a lot of help these days for lecturers and course developers in terms of the time they can spend on that instead of doing repetitive works as giving feedback or answering questions to students. But of course, I mean, together with the advantages, we know there's still some challenges, and there will always be challenges and things to consider, related to EdTech and AI especially. The main challenge remains the digital divide, so, equity and access. Not all students in school, we know, have equal access to AI tools. And I think there's a problem as well with this goes with the access to internet and the kind of the infrastructure itself. And we know that in some parts of the world, this digital divide is actually widening. So this remain a problem because it doesn't just it starts with the not having access to the same tools, but then it kind of widens the gap because with tools come advantage, come, more resources, and then this then kind of becomes, you have less opportunities as well in terms of career, in terms of accessing things, in terms of knowing what's happening out there. So it's something really to consider. Another big thing is the privacy and the data security, of course, with the systems and the analytics and so on. There's a lot of data related to learners and students that are collected every day. So, and with that, of course, comes the risk of data leaks and breaks into systems, which, of course, it's quite it's something to consider. And we know how cybersecurity has become one of the main skills actually needed these days. So data, of course, we have a lot of data, and data helps. AI works amazing with data, but with that comes, of course, some risks. So privacy and the bias as well, and fairness is related to that, as we know that AI can be quite biased towards some kind of maybe cultural traits or some characteristics for individuals. So that is something that we need to consider. And of course, this is a whole topic in itself, as in the fact that EdTech is not neutral, as is designed by individuals, and as individuals we are biased to start with, and then the way it is implemented and so on. So there's a lot to consider there, and bias is there, and there's a bit of unfairness going on, especially in some countries, in some industry, to consider. And academic integrity, which is again something that I think universities especially they had to deal with for a few years now. And I mean there's always an upside of it, because this EdTech and generative AI, I think it has, in a way, it has led universities to have to deal with, with innovating in terms of assessment, in terms of how things are done. But of course, academic integrity remains a big worry, because we all know that, and students use ChatGPT, they use AI to help with assessment in different ways, but it is hard to understand sometimes, the grade in which they have been used and so on. So this is something that, you know, remains a bit problematic, and it's a challenge, but there are also potential solutions to this. And again, it could be, you know, another topic in itself. I think a lot of institutions these days, a lot of lecturers, they try to integrate AI in their assessment itself, which is a very good way to make sure you know, we move forward, and also for the students to retain this critical thinking and the ability to kind of scaffold on different kind of learning and resources. And of course, I know there's not a lot of time left, so I'm gonna finish up by saying, so that what the future will need is, of course, more teacher training, which is part of, you know, the upskilling and reskilling, which is applied to lecturers and people in education as well, because education is one industry where AI is really strong in terms of innovation. So there's always new technologies coming up, and there's always things to be piloted and so on. So teacher training becomes really crucial. The infrastructure, of course, cost is sometimes a barrier, and we know, you know, especially institutions like universities, and, you know, I'm in the UK, and I know how difficult things are for universities at the moment. So investing heavily in AI and tech requires a lot of thinking in terms of, you know, what is the best solution for our issues and for innovation to happen. And of course, quality control. So this will become, you know, crucial, because we have AI, which is taking over a lot of things. We are automating a lot of tasks that we used to do manually. So ensuring that AI outputs are accurate and appropriate is really crucial. And yeah, so personalize it. So the future of learning with AI is really about even more powerful personalized learning, where more features will be added. And, you know, when we have a lot of things going on in teaching and learning, now the next step is a personalized career pathway as well, which is related to the teaching and learning, for example. Global access, hopefully there will be, you know, AI-powered tool will widen access even more, especially for areas where that is not a lot at the moment. And human AI partnership will increase, and I think will become kind of, you know, educators and AI working in tandem, and with technology handling routine tasks like, you know, this virtual assistant answering questions for students, and humans focusing more on mentorship and more of a leadership and inspiration roles. So let's see what the future will bring. And thank you. That's
Thanks,
it.
Elise. Thank you, Elise. That was fascinating. I can see that we've got some students on the call. Can I open the floor up to students, and if there's any questions? Azahar? Go ahead.
Thank you, Elisa. It's really a wonderful area to explore. I just wanted to ask you, you talked about gamification, and it's something I did some work in. I looked at esports, and there's an esports academy in America, which is called Esport Towers. So what they tried to do was, you know, segregate different measurements of learning. So IQ is one of them, intelligence quotient. They looked at adversity quotient, they looked at spirituality quotient and emotional quotient. So they said that they're using gamification through analytics to measure, you know, a person rather than just his degree, if you like. What are your views on that? Do you think AI can, I mean, obviously AI can provide all the information that can define a person, but do you think that's an area, do you think it's too invasive, or do you think, because those skill sets are important when you're looking at individuals? That was one question. The other one is really to do with singularity. Kurzweil wrote a book in 2005, and he feels that AI and human brain will converge by 2029. Now he's pushed it to 2045. But,
Yeah.
you know, I just want, one question is really, how do you, I mean, and I've experimented with a Duolingo type of app. I've done it for Arabic, and I've got about 100,000 people learning Arabic at the moment. It's an investment I made, but we're having the same sort of problems which you've highlighted and challenges. But you know, the main thing I wanted to look at, can you make a person, assess a person real and give him those skills, give him those features, and then that person can be judged based on the career he or roadmap he takes in the future. Is that a possible area that will grow quickly or not?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I mean, I think this is related to sports, you said, right? But no. So yes, I can see, well, what I see at the moment, and because I also collaborate with an EdTech, which provides skills intelligence. And I mean, I can see how, you know, there's this whole concept of a skills passport, for example, and to, you know, map what kind of skills you have and what kind of skills you will need to get to a certain career. And this is a very good, it's a very good option because it's very practical and it's focused on actually, okay, you know, this is what you're actually learning from these courses and this is where you want to go. But I'm not sure when it comes to personal characteristics, right? I think this is a bit of a gray area, and you know, we're talking about bias and unfairness, and I'm afraid AI is, you know, it's not quite fair at the moment in specific areas, and I don't think I would like to be kind of profiled in this sense by AI, and I don't think. Actually, I would like to use this sports tech that you mentioned. I will go and look at it. But yeah, I think it's quite, you know, if it's based on skills and if it's based on characteristics which, you know, you get from your work, your experience, your education, things that are objective, I'm happy with it because, you know, they are evidenced and they're there. But when you start looking at kind of personal characteristics and I don't know, I'm not sure that would be something I'm happy with at the moment. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I think personally, I looked at the model because I was talking to the government of Qatar, and Han Academy is one of the things that they've taken on board. But the government, I presented esports as a concept. There was a lot of business around it, scholarships around it, like you have scholarships for sports people in America. And in the same way, they're raising funding. But there's an element of Christian, you know, community behind it as well. They say we want a bit of a spirituality aspect to it. So they use games like Fortnite, which my son plays. I don't even know what it's about, but basically they capture emotions, they capture adversity, they capture, you know, whether someone is, you know, a team player or not, you know, all that, and then they quantify it in some way. So it might be worth exploring. It's called Esports Tower, and
Okay.
you Google it and you'll find a bit more about it. But it's quite an interesting dynamic, and because I like, I mean, the way here they're looking at patriotism in the Middle East, how to make people more patriotic. So the curriculums are pushed in that way. So they want to measure that somehow, and they were looking at that as a tool as well. So there's a lot. I mean, you talked about privacy and data
Yeah.
protection, and that kind of thing is a bit
Yeah. I think it would be,
lenient
yeah,
here.
I think it would be interesting to understand how they train, you know, in terms of machine learning, how they train the machine to, you know, recognize and classify its different patterns. Because when it comes to individuals, it's, you know, yes, it can lead to a lot of bias and
Yeah,
unfairness if the machine is not trained on proper
yeah,
data as well. So it all depends on the, you know, AI works great with data, but if the data is not good to start with, then you're not going to get good results.
yeah.
And we know where that can lead. So I would be quite cautious in that sense. So yeah, but in terms of, you know, you're talking about the singularity. Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about that. I don't think AI is going to take over, you know, our jobs or our lives. I know Elon Musk said that, you know, we will all need to have like a universal income because none of us will have any job soon, because AI will take over, but we're not there yet. So I think we can sleep well, and it's not a problem. Yes.
So I'm conscious that time is moving on. Maybe a final question, Daniel?
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. Put a lot of the things that were in my head into a little bit more category, so appreciate that. And it's more a comment. You were mentioning several times that AI is providing teachers more opportunity to spend time on other things. And if I look at my school time and as well of that's of my kids, what was missing was the time that the teachers spent with the kids, actually. So I think if you look at this positively, I think AI can do the intellectual intelligence training while teachers could move on the emotional intelligence side and training and help on that. And that would be time well spent instead of thinking that all the time they're taking away, they can actually add something which we do not really have today. So I thought it very interesting in terms of how you see, okay, there's time available. What do we do with it? Well, maybe spend on the kids, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think, yeah, if you have more time to actually mentor and talk to students, that would be really amazing, instead of having to write feedback or, correct grammar mistakes, and which is, it's also very useful, but now AI can do that, and you can actually mentor and talk to people and, see them grow, instead of just look at the grammar. So yeah,
it's a bright future. I think it's actually positive.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about tech and AI. So yeah.
So I'm conscious it's a Sunday, and Elisa's in the UK, and I think there's two events going on in the UK. One is the London Marathon, and the other one is the sun is out. So the fact that the sun is shining, I think it's a good opportunity for us to wrap this up and say thank you very much, Elisa, for a really fascinating talk. As you're probably aware, Dr. Forestan-Barnes is now working with UBIS, so she's around, and I'm sure she won't mind if you reach out to her and pick her brains on this topic if you so desire.
Absolutely. Please connect and email me. I always love to talk about tech and education. So great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much, Liz. Thanks everyone for joining. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Bye-bye.